The courtroom floated in high orbit, bathed in the blue-white light of Kareth 7's twin moons. It was a sterile place, all polished steel and cold transpariglass, but to Naila it felt like the hollow belly of some dead beast. She stood alone in the center of the chamber, wrists bound in a dull red magnetic clasp. Her gaze remained steady. Naila Vrain, the arbiter's voice echoed through the chamber, you stand accused of sabotage resulting in the failure of 3 critical reactor cores in the lower zones of Colony Sector 4. Your actions caused widespread power loss, economic collapse, and at least 7 recorded civilian deaths. How do you plead? Naila's lips barely moved. Guilty. From the viewing gallery above, Inar felt his stomach twist. He'd seen her only a handful of times, quietly repairing plasma converters behind the fuel bays, sleeves always rolled, a streak of engine soot across one cheek. She never smiled, but there was something steady about her. Honest. Solid. He didn't believe it. Not for a second. He leaned closer to the transpariglass rail, trying to read more in her expression. Her dark eyes were calm, but it was the calm of someone drowning in silence, not someone guilty. Outside the chamber, newsfeeds blared half-truths: mechanic turns terrorist, blue-collar betrayal, saboteur found among colonists. Inar knew better. He had fought wars, seen lies dressed in protocol, and watched justice twist under pressure. He'd left all that behind when he settled on Kareth 7, but now, staring down at the girl who had once fixed his broken relay unit with careful hands, he felt something rekindle. As the arbiter pronounced her sentence, 10 years at the lunar penal colony of Dasker, Inar turned and walked out. Not away. Toward something. Toward her truth. It started the day before the final hearing. Inar had stopped at Bay 19B, the quiet one tucked beneath the collapsed cargo scaffold. Naila had been there, bent over a melted coolant grid, the welding torch throwing flickers of firelight against her cheek. Still trying to breathe life into junk, Inar had asked with a wry smile. She didn't laugh, but the edge of her mouth twitched. It breathes better than most people. He watched her in silence for a moment. You heard about the blackout? Yeah, her voice was unreadable. They say it was sabotage. They say a lot of things. He'd wanted to ask more, but a calm alert had cut the moment short. It was the last real conversation they had. Now, standing in a corridor lined with flickering holoscreens, Inar replayed that moment again and again. There was something in her voice. Not guilt. Grief. Like someone bracing against a storm. He tapped into public archives, listening to the tribunal logs. Nothing felt right. No forensic trail. No confirmed login under her ID. Everything built on second-hand accounts and circumstantial data. That night, he walked alone through the orbital station's lower gravity levels, thinking. Why confess? Why now? He remembered an offhand remark from one of the refuelers: her brother ran with some shady crowd before the shutdown. Disappeared after the first blast. It clicked. She was protecting someone. On the day of sentencing, Inar arrived early. Sat in the gallery. Watched as legal arbiters moved like shadows. Naila didn't flinch. She took the full weight of it. The gallery was quiet, sparsely populated. Most had already decided she was guilty, and justice would be done. But Inar leaned forward, whispering to himself, this isn't right. As the words, penal colony, echoed, he pushed from his seat, not in outrage but in resolution. She wouldn't go forgotten. He would find the truth. Because someone needed to believe in her. The sky above the lower zones of the colony was a permanent gray, smudged with exhaust trails and dust blown in from the outer storms. Down here, the world felt forgotten. Towers rose like broken teeth, rusted scaffolding leaning like bones of a once mighty beast, and everything smelled of burnt plastic and the acidic tang of battery decay. Inar tightened his coat as he stepped off the mag line, boots sinking slightly into the grime-caked floor of the scrapyard sector. He hadn't been here in years. Not since he left that life behind. But the weight of Naila's fate pressed against his chest, heavy as a planet, and he knew the truth would only be found here, among the ruins and the restless. The old yard hadn't changed. Spires of discarded tech and shattered bots stood like monuments to failed promises. Inar pushed through the piles, the metal groaning underfoot. He wasn't looking for salvage today. He was searching for a man who once taught him how to disassemble an engine blindfolded, and how to lie with a straight face. Jotho, he muttered under his breath. The old mechanic's shack was wedged between two husks of land haulers, almost invisible unless you knew what to look for. A flickering blue light from within guided him. He knocked twice, a pause, then once more, a code from years past. The door creaked open. Inar. Well, I'll be. You got older. Uglier too. Jotho was thinner than he remembered, skin like scorched hide, eyes sharp despite the years. Grease clung to his fingernails like it was part of him. Didn't come for flattery, Inar said, stepping in. I need shards. Surveillance logs from Sector 8, week of the incident. Jotho snorted, dropping into his creaking chair. Always business. Still carrying ghosts, boy. Inar didn't reply. The mechanic waved a hand toward the back. There's a bin under the bench. Pull the red case. Whatever's still readable's in there. But don't ask me how I got it. Inar knelt, his fingers brushing dust and wire remnants. He opened the red case. Dozens of shards, thin slivers of polymer embedded with data crystals, rattled like dry bones. He picked one, slotted it into his wrist console, and projected the feed. Images flickered, grainy, incomplete. He cycled through hours of static and fragmented footage, drones circling, workers moving crates, a brief image of Naila arguing with someone by the fuel stacks. Zoom. Inar froze. The figure opposite her wasn't from maintenance. The build was off. The badge, it wasn't colony issued. He enhanced the image. Symbols barely visible, marked in black ink. A sigil. One he'd seen long ago. The burned ring. Fringe faction. Anti-synthetic extremists. Supposedly dissolved years ago. But Inar had grown up around lies. They never really died. They just went quiet. He ejected the shard. You recognize it, Jotho said, not a question. Inar nodded. She was arguing with one of them. Then she's either stupid or brave. Probably both. Like her brother. Inar turned sharply. Naila has a brother? Jotho smirked. Had. He was in deep with the fringes. Last I heard, he vanished after a drone strike in Zone 12. Name? Rovek. Went by Shade in the alleys. Big on speeches, not big on plans. Inar filed the name away. Rovek. Shade. If Naila's brother had been involved, it complicated everything. Maybe she was protecting him. Maybe she'd taken the fall to bury the past. He left the shack before the questions could multiply. The lower zones pulsed with an anxious rhythm as day shifted toward the cycle's edge. Neon flickered over alleys, casting digital shadows across soaked ferrocrete. Inar found Veli where she always was, beneath the overpass where old data tides broke against the concrete, sharing smoke with cyber rats and rumor traders. She saw him first. You got the face of a man who dug up ghosts. I need intel. On a guy named Shade. Fringe affiliations. Ties to sector sabotage. Veli raised an eyebrow, exhaling a puff of synth vapor. That name's a relic. But relics leave echoes. Got creds? He transferred a stack. More than fair. Heard he was Naila's brother. You knew her, right? Veli's mouth tightened. She used to bring scraps for the street orphans. Didn't judge. didn't look down. She got arrested, they said sabotage. I didn't buy it. Why not? Because Shade hated her. She believed in reform. He believed in burning everything down. You don't turn on the colony just to protect a brother who spat on you. Inar's jaw clenched. The image of Naila in cuffs, eyes quiet and unflinching, came back. Where's Shade now? Dead, maybe. Or hiding with the scorch rats beyond the trench line. Last I heard, he'd been dealing black-grade EMPs to disrupt synth farms. That fit the explosion's pattern. Controlled, pulsed disruption. Not enough to kill, just enough to cripple. I need proof. Logs, messages, comms, anything. Veli tilted her head. You don't just want to clear her name. You want to understand her. He didn't answer. I'll dig. But if I find something, you owe me more than creds. You tell the whole story. Not the version they want. That night, Inar holed up in an abandoned mag rail control booth, splicing logs, syncing timestamps, building a timeline. Surveillance data. Traffic records. Power fluctuations. Every detail began to form a mosaic, one Naila's presence never quite matched. She wasn't in the sector at the critical moment. She left early. Her log said maintenance override. The rail trigger came 22 minutes later, while she was recorded exiting through a service tunnel. Someone had altered timestamps to frame her. He replayed a clip of her arguing with Shade, now enhanced with sound. You're going to get people killed. The system needs breaking, Naila. We grew up in its gutter. You think we can fix it from inside? Then you go alone. I won't be your excuse. It ended there. Inar sat back, breath catching. Her voice had held fear, but not of guilt. Of betrayal. He'd been wrong to doubt her. She wasn't a saboteur. She was a shield. And she'd taken the fall to protect a colony that would never thank her. He leaned his head back against the wall, staring at the cracked ceiling. Among the ashes and fragments, he'd found something unexpected, not just a path to the truth, but a deeper admiration. For her resilience. Her silence. Her impossible choice. She had saved lives. And now it was time he saved hers. The next day, Inar met with Jotho and Veli again, this time, with a data packet ready to deploy. Jotho reviewed it with slow, methodical care, while Veli watched Inar's expression more than the screens. This'll rattle the assembly, Jotho murmured. You got timestamps, logs, comm intercepts, this is enough to open a tribunal. And enough to make enemies, Veli added. The kind that burn out names before they're spoken. Inar nodded. Let them come. She took the blame for a crime she didn't commit. It's time someone took the fight to the top. His hands tightened around the packet. In the grime of the scrapyards, in the digital ghosts of the lower zones, he had forged a new purpose. Naila's quiet strength had lit something in him. And he would not let that flame be buried in silence. The prison transport vessel Penance cut through the dark between Earth's orbit and the silver-rimmed lunar horizon. Inside its hull, silence hung heavy, broken only by the occasional metallic groan as pressure stabilized and engines hummed low. The air was sterilized, scrubbed too clean of scent and emotion. To most aboard, it was just another run. To Inar, it was a ticking hourglass. Disguised in a gray, grease-streaked jumpsuit 2 sizes too large, he moved through the corridors like shadow and oil, slipping into the maintenance crew as one of the nameless. The stolen ID badge clipped to his chest read Corinne Vell. He never met the man. He didn't need to. He had only one goal. Naila. She was somewhere deep in the belly of the vessel, sedated and shackled for the trip to Tycho's penal complex. That was standard procedure for Category 5 detainees, those convicted of acts bordering on sedition, sabotage, or terrorism. He winced at the labels they gave her. She had fought for truth. They branded her a traitor. Inar passed by Captain Ryan without a second glance. The woman's face was hard angles and harder orders. She barked something about vent coils to a junior officer and moved on. Good. He couldn't risk her attention. He took the lower maintenance hatch, heart pounding, passing through the pressure seal into sublevel gamma. It was quieter there, darker. The flickering green emergency strip lights cast everything in a sick hue. There were no cameras in this section. Just legacy systems and forgotten conduits. Exactly where he needed to be. He pulled a bypass key from his belt, cracked the outer panel, and rewired the hatch to cell block C9. The security door hissed, clanked, and reluctantly gave way. There she was. Slumped in the corner of her holding cell, knees drawn to her chest, head bowed. Her dark hair spilled like ink across her shoulders. Her wrists bore raw cuffs. But she was still here. Still breathing. Still Naila. He whispered her name. Naila. Her head jerked up, eyes wide, then narrowed in disbelief. Inar. He stepped inside before the cell door could hiss closed. The automated locks would reset in 90 seconds. You're not real, she said, voice rough. They drugged me again. Or you're a trick. He crouched before her, gently placing his hand over hers. Warm. Solid. Real. I had to see you. Had to know you were okay. I'm not okay. They're sending me to the moon. Her voice cracked on the last word, almost a laugh. Bitter, hopeless. I'll never come back. Inar swallowed hard. This wasn't the woman who'd stared down military tribunals, who'd cracked coded transmissions and exposed inner sanctum lies. This was someone broken. But only on the outside. He leaned in, forehead resting lightly against hers. I don't believe that. And neither should you. Why? Because you're here for 90 seconds of a goodbye. Because I've seen what you left behind. The pieces. The clues. I followed the threads. You weren't wrong, Naila. You were right. Her breath hitched. It doesn't matter if I was right. I'm still going to disappear. No, you're not. His whisper turned into a vow. I'm going to get you out. She blinked, dazed. Inar. The lights flickered. A hum above them changed pitch. The 90 seconds were nearly gone. He pulled a small memory shard from his collar and pressed it into her palm. There's a hidden microtransmitter. Don't let them find it. When you get to the moon, hold on to it. Help is coming. Naila stared at it. You're risking everything. For me. Inar cupped her cheek. Not just for you. For the truth. For what they buried. For all the people who never got to speak. She leaned into his touch. You always believed in me, she said, softer now. He nodded. Then, just before the door hissed open and the red light above them flared, she gripped his wrist. Her eyes locked with his, glass and storm. Inar, there's something I never said. Back then, when everything started. Tell me. I loved you. Even before the protests. Even before the files. I just didn't know how to say it without losing everything else. Time shattered. The door opened. Footsteps rang. A guard's shout echoed down the hall. But Inar wasn't moving. He was still staring into her eyes. Into what she never said. Until now. They yanked him out, hands grabbing, voices screaming, taser rods swinging. One connected with his ribs and darkness bloomed behind his eyes. As he hit the floor, he saw her one last time, fingers clenched around the memory shard, eyes wide with something close to hope. He smiled. Because he had something to hold on to too. She loved him. And that changed everything. Captain Ryan reviewed the footage later, a scowl etched across her face. Sloppy, she muttered. Security breach on my vessel. The crewman beside her swallowed hard. We're locking down all internal access, ma'am. Don't bother. He already planted something. I can smell it. She leaned back in her seat, arms folded. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. And on the moon, in the gray-walled dorm of the incoming cell block, Naila pressed her back against cold steel and closed her eyes. She hadn't broken. Not yet. And not alone. The hum of the Capitol dome was unlike anything Inar had known, deep, mechanical, ceaseless. It wasn't a city's heart but its prison, encased in shining alloy and bloodless efficiency. Beneath it, the Central Syndicate data bank slumbered like a coiled predator, shielded by biometric vaults, AI sentinels, and layers of bureaucratic paranoia. Getting in was one kind of madness. Getting out? That was suicide. And yet, here they were. Inar adjusted his infiltration rig, the syn fiber wrapped tightly under his civilian tunic. It still bore fake maintenance insignia from the last job, but that wouldn't help them here. This place didn't employ humans, it used them. The cold stares of surveillance sentries tracked every step. We don't have long, Veli whispered beside him. The girl was a wraith in motion, slipping between blind spots with the grace of a dancer and the mind of a street-born hacker. Her makeshift interface, a scavenged optic loop wired through a wristband, flickered with activity. Fourth junctions rerouted. We got about 10 minutes before the system cross-checks. She looked up. After that, we're ghosts in a cage. Inar nodded. 10 minutes was eternity, if they moved like fire. The corridor narrowed as they descended past the main vault thresholds. Every turn was a question, did they run into a dead end or an end altogether? Veli led with confidence, every move precise. Her hands flitted from panel to panel like she'd been born under flickering code instead of stars. Here, she said finally, kneeling by a black slab embedded in the wall. It pulsed with slow blue light, an interface node, but deeply encrypted. Even breathing wrong could set off a silent alarm. Veli pulled a small sphere from her belt and slapped it to the wall. It whined, then quieted. Lights dimmed as the area entered temporary blackout. Overlay suppression up, she said. We're in the back door now. Inar approached, pulling the shard drive from his coat. I hope this works. It better. I lost 3 friends to get that back-end code. They waited. The sphere pulsed with synthetic rhythm. Slowly, the node's guard routines flickered and fell away. A lattice of folders and logs opened across Veli's optic. She traced the patterns, isolating dates, power fluctuations, reactor logs, and most importantly, surveillance feeds. And then they saw it. The reactor zone. 5 hours before the meltdown. A man in an old engineer's suit slipped through a side entrance. The image was grainy, but unmistakable. Naila's brother, Inar breathed. I'll extract it, Veli said, fingers dancing. Then the air changed. Inar felt it before the system did. A prickling, as if a storm had entered the corridor. Go, he hissed. Veli caught the warning too late. A door at the far end slid open. Enforcer Neff stepped through. Half a faceplate, half a sneer, an augmented watchdog of the syndicate. His hand was already at his sidearm. Well, well. What do we have here? Neff didn't shoot first. That would have been too easy. He liked games. Inar grabbed Veli's arm. Run. They darted left, into a narrow server artery. Alarms shrieked to life. The blackout sphere blinked red, overridden. Neff fired. A shot scraped the metal beside Inar's ear. Sparks erupted. He shoved Veli down another corridor as blasts chewed into the wall behind them. Where's the exit? He yelled. I didn't plan for an enforcer. Then improvise. They reached a junction. Inar pivoted and fired a stolen pulse round behind him, enough to stall Neff, but not enough to wound. They ducked through a ventilation chamber. Pipes hissed. Steam burst. Inar's foot caught a ladder rung. He fell, landing hard. His side flared with pain. Blood. Shit, Veli gasped, helping him up. No time. Go. They broke into a service corridor and raced through. Veli keyed open an access grate. Wind from the transport lanes rushed in. Above them, the glittering dome of the Capitol curved like a cruel heaven. Drop, she shouted. They fell 3 meters onto a delivery skiff. It bounced under their weight but held. Veli slammed the ignition. The hover jets howled. Behind them, Neff leapt from the ledge, crashing onto the skiff's rear deck. The vehicle swerved. Neff fired again, Inar's shoulder lit up with agony. But he didn't let go. He turned, raising the shard drive. You want this? Then fall with it. Neff lunged. Inar twisted. The weight of his body carried both of them off the edge. They hit the side of a cargo lane divider. Neff screamed as his augment shorted out. He tumbled off into the depths. Inar clung to the edge. Veli steered the skiff back with frantic hands. She reached out, caught his wrist. With one last pull, she dragged him aboard. Hours passed in hiding. Inar's wound was bad, but not mortal. The shard drive was intact. He stared at the video again. Naila's brother, alone. Walking into a restricted zone with access codes. Too calm. Too deliberate. He knew, Inar muttered. Veli sat across from him, knees pulled to her chest. You going to show her? He nodded. She needs to see the truth. Veli looked at the drive, then back at him. She's going to break, she whispered. People always do, when the lie they carried dies. Inar met her gaze. Or they rise. Because of who stood by them when it happened. Veli said nothing. But she didn't look away. The chamber of the Capitol Council Hall thrummed with tension. Beneath the crystalline dome, counselors whispered behind clasped hands and flicked impatient glances at the security feeds overhead. Outside, the public gathered in growing waves, desperate for truth. Inside, Inar stood alone at the center dais, pale but unwavering, a bandage around his side and fire in his voice. He activated the shard projector. You will want to see this. The footage played, grainy, silent, undeniable. Cavan's face in restricted reactor corridors. The timestamp placing him precisely where Naila had been accused. The secondary logs Inar had risked his life for. The audio fragment that had taken hours to isolate, Cavan's voice, speaking with known fringe radicals. And then, the moment of the blast. A collective inhale swept the chamber. Silence followed. Then Counselor Dravan leaned forward, his voice low and cold. Are we watching the truth? Inar met his gaze. Yes. And it cost blood to bring it here. Whispers exploded across the chamber. One by one, the counselors stood. The formal declaration came minutes later, Naila Ivesh was innocent. Cleared of all charges. Elsewhere, hidden among the pillars of the outer gallery, Cavan watched, hood drawn low. His jaw tightened. A lifetime of guilt shimmered in his eyes. He turned to leave, but stopped, then stepped into the light, hands raised. I'll testify, he said to the guards. It's time. The medical ward was quiet except for the slow beeping of Inar's monitor. He stirred as soft footsteps approached. Naila stood at his bedside, no longer in chains, her eyes brighter than he remembered. She said nothing at first. Neither did he. Then, slowly, she reached out. Fingers brushed fingers. You believed in me, she whispered. You were never just the lie they told. Outside, the dawn broke over the capital. Light filtered through the windows. She sat beside him, their hands joined. It was not an end. It was the beginning of something real. The light she became was not born of flame, but of truth. And he would follow it, wherever it led.